This is the FRC Roundtable, coming to you all the way from Minnesota. Your host team 2052 Nightcrawler presents this weekly FRC gathering where FIRST Robotics competition teams take cooperation off the field. Share your knowledge, give and get advice, solve a challenge, or celebrate what makes your team special. 3, 2, 1, go!
Hopefully also be linked in the description of the YouTube video when the recording goes up if anybody wants like kind of timestamps or summary of discussion.
Well, oh, here's somebody else. I wanted to start off the meeting by apologizing about the snafu last week. I totally messed up. My schedule was really bad last week. I was out of town. I forgot to send the invites. Then I was late getting back in town. So it was just a huge mess. And I apologize for messing up the call last week. And then other bad news. So 2 weeks ago's call, I had my computer set up in the other room to do the recording and a power plug wasn't plugged in all the way. So I have no idea how much of that recording actually happened before we lost it. So I have a handful of videos that we still need to upload to YouTube for anyone who wants to watch the replays. I'll try to get those all uploaded this week. So welcome everybody. I know we have a lot of new people on the call tonight. I hit every pit at 10K. And so I talked to every team at 10K except for the Czech team because it's 2 a.m. for them. So I didn't bother stopping by their pit and asking them to join our call at 2 a.m. in the morning. So hopefully we got a whole bunch of new people. I think for tonight's topic, our topic tonight is we're going to talk about awards. So how do you help your students get ready to talk to judges? If you do the impact award, what do you do in the off season? How do you prepare for that before competition? Then how do you prepare for that during competition for your student presentation? If you go to a specific award, it would be really interesting to hear how you try to target a specific award. And anything else, anybody else wants to talk about awards. I did have a request from someone on Slack channel to talk about travel logistics for champs. I think it might make sense to start that off. Phil, that was Phil. We could start that off right at the beginning of the conversation. And I also want to do a shout out to Ian. Ian, I saw you join the call. Heard a lot of really positive stuff about your fantasy FRC. Sounds like it was a big hit. Is Ian on the call? I thought I saw Ian join.
Yeah, I'm here today.
Excellent. So it was a big hit. Thanks, Ian. I think I heard a lot of really positive stuff about it. For those of you who don't know, the Fantasy FRC that conversation started in this channel, and Ian went away and came back a week later and said, I got it done, I solved it. So he made an FRC thing. I haven't checked the Chief Delphi post to see what everybody was saying about it, but it sounds awesome. Does anybody else have anybody they want to recognize on the call? No Mythic got you guys got the Impact Award. That was fantastic. I see Joseph's on the call. Is Phoebe on the call too? Phoebe's usually in here.
Yeah, I'm here.
So congratulations to you guys.
Thank you.
That was fantastic.
Obviously, a shout out to Lexi is well deserved for Dean's List.
Oh, right. Yes, of course. Can't forget Lexi. Lexi got Dean's List.
And Ian.
Yes.
Oh, right. Ian got
lacrosse.
Dean's List in lacrosse. Congrats. Shout out to Ian again. Anyone else have anything they want to share before we start? All right, Phil, what questions do you have about champs? Maybe.
So many. So this is my 5th year, but this is my first year as a head coach, and we've always had a really tiny team, but we just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we committed a lot this off season to kind of outreach and having new programs. We offered a summer camp for kids in our community. But somehow we walked away with engineering inspiration. We had no idea we were getting that. We were like, oh, cool. We thought maybe engineering excellence one of my players thought that's what it was going to be. So we kind of shut ourselves off after that award passed us by. And then we got that one. And now we're trying to figure out what the heck this means because we have never been to state or to champs. So we want to know like what tips you guys have had from you veteran teams that have been there before. Is it better to go find hotels on our own, or is go through First Housing? What do you guys do for like busing? I just need anything that you guys can give. And I know that's a really open-ended question and probably not helpful, but that's where we're at.
You should book your hotel in December. That's my
Yeah.
first piece of advice. There's actually
I just got to turn over my 4 rooms. Oh man, I should have waited until after this meeting.
Well, Jeremiah, what hotel were you in? How many rooms do you need?
It was 4 rooms, and it was I think it's called the Ascended something. It was not. It was really close to the event center. Let me see.
Phil, how many rooms do you think you need?
If we brought our whole team and some parents, we're looking at close to 40 people.
Oh, I want to have 4 rooms.
Is that normal that you guys bring your whole teams? Is it only certain kids?
We're looking at probably bringing around 40 people, maybe a little less. But yeah, we brought almost our entire team last year. And we're trying to bring all of our students and quite a few of our mentors. And our mentors have been handling a lot of like the lodging and busing logistics. But a big thing I would say is like we had a meeting today that it was like literally like 4 hours long of talking through all of the busing and housing and like everything that like how we're going to fundraise, like all of that. And it was like, it took a long time, but it was really helpful to have all of the key people in the room to like figure out, okay, like we're going to divide the work. Here's what we're going to do moving forwards. And so if you haven't already had a meeting like that, having something like that as soon as possible could be really helpful. It was really helpful for us.
Yep, we got that scheduled for tomorrow night with all the parents.
So First has hotel registration through some First site. We did not use that this year. We went with our own hotel that was away from the downtown area because we're going to have a bus. So we didn't want to pay the downtown prices. We're out a little bit further. Our rooms were $125 a night, and then we paid a $40 fee for breakfast all 3 nights or all 3 mornings that were there, so that our kids could have breakfast in the morning. So I felt really good about that price. It's significantly cheaper than the hotels that we have had in Duluth. So we were happy with that price. We do take 40 to 50 people when we go. I will share that most of the bus quotes that we got were in the $20,000 range. It's really expensive for a bus. If someone out there has found a significantly cheaper price, we'd love to know how you did that. If anyone's willing to share.
So you're taking a bus from here, there, and keeping that bus? Is that what you're doing?
Yep, that's what we're doing. Have you done something different, Eric?
Well, the last year we flew because we only found out about our being accepted within a week. That was expensive. And we hired buses there, which was very expensive. If we did it again, we'd probably use public transportation from the hotel there, and that would have saved us quite a few thousands of dollars. So that's just it's a viable. I know it's not as easy for everybody to take public transportation, but it's definitely a viable way to save money.
Our hotel's in the medical center area, and there's a train that goes from the medical center to downtown. We just didn't feel comfortable getting 50 people on the train and not losing a kid, but it was something we definitely considered.
Tying them around each other's hand. One person trip and everyone trip.
I mean,
the one thing I will say, though, is that a lot of teams do book hotels in case they do qualify. I mean, we were one of them. We booked a hotel early in case we qualified. And so that first hotel registration system may have a bunch of cancellations tomorrow. So it's sort of an easy, I assume, it's sort of an easy place to try to find a booking. We also, I believe, have a Taylor Swift concert in town that weekend. So it could be really hard. I don't have a great advice around hotels other than trying to use the first system and hoping that there's a big block of cancellations.
Yeah, I think we probably booked, so you might want to talk to Sandy because unfortunately we didn't make it this year. So I think we might have rooms that you might want to talk to her.
When I was looking, they also had because also on the FRC on Facebook, I've been following some threads on there where people talking about, oh, we rent out a house. Like some people do Airbnbs, and so then they just crammed everybody in the house. And so maybe that's something else to look into too. When I was also trying to book this hotel for us, if we admit it was the houses were the cheaper one, like you can get a whole house for less than $1,000, and I was like, wow. But I just didn't want to stay in somebody else's house. That was my thing. But
yeah, I think a lot of the non-FRC block hotels are booked up. At least when my family was looking at potential hotels for when I'm going down to Houston for Dean's List, and so we ended up using the first booking system. But I'm assuming it's probably easier for one person rather than an entire team.
Yeah.
In terms of like some transportation stuff, our team stayed in walking distance last year of the convention center, but we did use public transit to get from the airport to our hotels. And we honestly had a pretty easy time. We had to use buses and trains, but like I would do it again. Like it worked well for us, at least at that time of day. And then in terms of bus quotes, we are looking at buses right now as an option. I have heard that I remember last year Technocrats and Ultraviolet qualified at North Star, and then they were able to get a lower bus quote. And what I heard from them on how they did that was essentially just calling like every bus company in existence around the Twin Cities to try to find something. So persistence maybe pays off.
Well, I was going to share, maybe it's the top secret I shouldn't share, but I don't know. Through our local, so we contacted like who does our school buses, and they get theirs. I believe their coach buses through Southwest Tour and Travel, I believe. And we got ours for about just under 10,000, 46 people, coach bus. And I was shocked when the quote came back. I was shocked. We quick signed it, and we're a first time champs team, so we're not sure what, but that's from the hotel to the convention center and back every day too. So it'd be worth checking out. Maybe some of the kind of rural stuff's a little cheaper. Not sure what the deal is, but that's 2 drivers going all night, all the good stuff. So.
I know that the Technocrats, I'm pretty sure they said that they picked up a bus cancellation. So I think the bus company was just hoping to fill that slot. And I think that's how they got that discount. But that doesn't change the fact that you still shouldn't call around lots of different places because you just never know what you might stumble into.
The other thing is that if you have a couple of smaller teams, you can share buses. I mean, we do that to Duluth every year with Hopkins. And we cut our bus costs in half.
I don't know, Phil, we talked in the mentor hallway before the walkthrough. I don't remember, but if you're in contact with your principal or your athletics director, when I qualified with my previous team a number of years ago, I said, we're in a sticky spot. What can you do? And they arranged it all. And I don't know, what kind of.
Yeah, we're meeting with them first thing in the morning tomorrow.
Okay. That might. I don't know what they'll have available, but that might help too.
Yep. Great. That's been helpful. I think. Thanks for that.
One final tip on a bus. Make sure that you get an accurate quote on a gratuity, because that was a surprise $2,000 that we did not plan to spend last year. And they give you an estimate of this is what a gratuity expectation is. And it was roughly 10%. And that was a surprise for us and a big bite out of our budget.
Another Worlds thing, briefly, is I definitely recommend paying attention to when the divisions come out. And as soon as you know if there are any other Minnesota or Minnesota area teams in your division, reach out to them. I mean, we were able to co-scout with the teams in our division, but even if it doesn't make sense to do like scouting collaboration, it's just really nice to have that connection with like, hey, we're in this together and we're going to be able to see each other throughout the day and like all that. So
I have one more tip. Food is super expensive. A box lunch, which is a cold sandwich, bag of chips, and a soda, is $22. So we are working on options for our team so that we can have affordable meal options for our team. So don't forget about what it's going to cost for your kids to eat down there, and make sure from an equity point of view that you're finding options for the students so that they can afford to eat.
What we have is one excellent mentor that takes care of our food. She goes to Costco for lunches, buys lunches for the entire team, goes out across the street, sets up, and we don't have to wait hours for food trucks or buy inside. And it really has worked well. It's fortunate we have mentors willing to do that.
Yeah, we had something very similar last year.
So did we, yeah.
So
all right.
How far away from the center do the buses park?
Are you talking about like
it really became crazy last year. Sometimes we had to walk blocks. We had to try and find them. Sometimes there's so much of a crowd there that the buses can't even get close. So you have to figure it out with your buses where you some convenient places to meet that might not be right there.
Did anyone on the call participate? I believe there was a group of teams last year that put their robots in a pod and shipped the pod down. Did anyone here participate in that group ship your robot down in a pod thing? I was really curious to find out how that went, because I think the pod got dropped off a block away from the convention center, so I wasn't quite sure how they got it from their pod to the convention center. All right, any last minute things on champs before we move on to our primary topic? All right, let's talk about awards. I don't want to start the conversation. Who wants to ask a question about awards or share their team's approach for awards?
I think something that we talked a little bit about as a team on Nightcrawler is like what awards, the judged awards that we want to go for. So like outside of something that's a little bit more longer term, like impact, when we're having students in the pits, like what we want them to focus on. Do other teams approach it like that? And how do you, talk with your pit crew about like, maybe pivoting the discussion with judges into, the areas that you want to focus on?
We have been doing something for the last couple of years now, which is maybe a little unusual, but we've decided to have, and this is partially because I wanted to do it, a like full-time pit presenter. And so I spent almost all of my time last year at competitions and also this year at our regionals, just being outside of the pit. And it meant that if anybody came by to talk, either like pit scouts, like event guests, and also judges, I could talk to them. And if my pit was busy, I could just like, I came up with like my little motto, which was deflect, protect, connect. So I was like keeping questions away from my pit crew when they were busy, so they could do their work, and then connecting with guests. And then I had a couple of people in the pit who were trained in to talk with me. So if they weren't busy, they could come help me talk to guests, and to judges and whatever. And then we've found that was really nice, because then students who are excited and confident to be in that role could do it. And the students who are like, I don't actually really want to talk to anyone, we're like, great. Like, you just keep working in the pit and we'll handle it. But I know that's kind of unusual. And so, I don't know.
We did some similar things. We have, this is Talon Robotics. We actually got the Excellence in Engineering Award this year, so pretty cool. But all of the pit members had to go through and have a set of 10 things they had to learn. So that was started in case anybody asks. They all were prepared to talk about the team. But we did have our dedicated, just like you, person who was always there, who was in charge of talking, of handling the judges. And it was her job to be there for Friday. And, anytime the judges would be there, she would be there. And then she had anybody, if she wanted to ask technical, we had more technical people than her who were also always there, but they also were trained at some time. And I think that helped us out this year.
Awesome. Yeah. Oh, what's up, Jeremiah?
No, if you were done with that, I had a different question, but keep going.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, because this was my first year being team captain for the team. And the system that we kind of had was if there was a robot related question, anytime there was like judges, I would try and be down there. People would like slack me. And I was in the pits much more than I was in the stands. And then, oh my gosh, I had another thought. Yeah. And I think kind of our pit crew was just like, if it's anything related to like team sustainability or, non-robot things, like try and grab Lexi as soon as possible. So I think, kind of having that one person there would be good. But I like the idea of having the 10 things that pit crew should learn. And like, I think having an itemized list a little bit sooner than we did would probably be a good idea.
Yeah, you also asked about like targeting for a specific award, which I think is interesting because we've like talked a little bit about that from time to time, but I don't think we've really ever actually targeted for a specific award, with the maybe exception of in 2022 when we had to do the presentation, like the virtual presentation to judges. And so we've usually instead of focusing on like, oh, this is a specific word we want to talk about, we focused on like just what things about our team are we proud of right now and what things about our robot are we proud of right now. And like making sure that I can't really speak to before I was involved, but at least for me, like me and my crew know like what things do we want to try to touch on when we get a chance to, because we're excited to talk about them. And I think even though it hasn't been focused on a specific award, just making a list of those things has been really helpful.
I'm with Gears 2181, and we the last 3 or 4 weeks that we've been meeting, we've constantly asked the students. Almost every single time we meet, we've said, "What's the story of our robot?" And I think telling that story of where we started, why we did it, and then where we ended up. We didn't end up winning the Industrial Design Award. We didn't go for that one. We actually talked a lot about the Creativity Award because all we did was shoot cubes. So it was funny. That award happened, and then we were like, well, that's fine. We tried our best, and then we ended up winning a different one. But again, we focused on the story part. So like, I think that's, if I was a judge, I viewed it from, if I was a judge, what would I want to know about a team? And I'd want to know the beginning, middle, end. So that's what we talked a lot about with our students. We haven't had a chance to do a lot of outreach. We've had a lot of mentor switchover this season with new mentors. So we didn't have a lot to say about doing stuff in our school or outreach yet. But so we kind of focused on the robot and again, that story.
Yeah, related to the story, one thing I guess might be unusual, but whenever they ask about our robot, we always start with the engineering process. Like when they start asking about the robot, before we actually tell them about the robot, they're like, well, we want to tell you how we decided to build this robot. And like, we always go to kickoff. And then from there, we get back to like the robot we have now and what it can actually do. And I had forgotten that might be a weird way to answer that question because it's so ingrained in me now that that's just what I do. But I think that's also been nice. Like, I think, so we got excellence in engineering at North Star last year. And I think that was really related to the way we were talking about it.
Sorry. My question was for like judging whatever, is there any benefit to having like a physical handout to give to the judges or like a presentation? Because for me, my experience for judging has been like FTC with their engineering notebooks and stuff. So judging in person has always been a little bit hard for me. So I try to do like presentations and handouts, but I don't know if there's any benefit to doing that for FRC judging.
I know for us, there were changes made to what is now the Sustainability Award. So last year we had made a business plan for the Entrepreneurship Award. And so we gave that to the judges. And I think that helped a lot because they could kind of go back and really check anything that we had talked about when I was talking with them in the pits. And just, I think it had more like data and stuff in there than when I had just been talking with them. So I think it depends on the award though. I can't really speak to the robot side as much.
Okay, thank you.
We had a prototype in our pit, and made out of wood, that we had saved on purpose to be able to show to the judges. We also had some videos showing of, again, prototyping, and we didn't necessarily reference them, but I saw some of the judges would kind of watch those a little bit while we were talking to, again, just evidence of the design process, exactly what Phoebe was talking about. So anytime you can take a video or have something physical, I don't think robot side, I don't think you need a handout, but again, just showing that design process, I think is the important part.
Yeah, for my specific presentation, I try to put on one of our monitors. I try to put as many screenshots as possible of our CAD models and like sub-assemblies. I definitely got an audience from it. And it was nice to point to while a judge was talking, especially when we were in queue and a robot was not physically in the pit at the moment. So I think it worked out. It's kind of hard when you don't really get feedback right away.
My guess is that it can only be helpful, but also to know that like you don't have to have a handout or a visual in order to get an award. I know that is like something that we've often been like, oh, we should have a handout or a visual, and we kind of never seem to actually manage to put one together. So like you don't have to have one, but it can definitely help. That's my perspective anyways.
I think having the robot there and itself and being able to talk about all the concepts on your robot is your biggest visual. We didn't have any handouts, but we can, work the judges through each of the subsystems and explain them. And again, it was a history. We go through starting out on prototyping, and we actually had a first robot that went to Duluth, which was a practice robot, and then explaining all the changes we made for our comp robot, which was there. So it is a full story, say this is what worked, what didn't, and this is why we changed this. And you can physically, as I said, it's there, and you can talk about it as your main visual, the robot itself.
For us, most years it seems like it ends up being the drive team and pit crew that are in the pit that are the ones that seem to know most about that robot, that have been most heavily involved students. We see the judges come by. Hopefully we aren't in the middle of trying to repair something for the match, because it's probably not going to get fixed. I mean, we just stop what we're doing, and if there's a mentor in there, we walk away, and the kids, get to explain the robot, like Phoebe said, talk about the design process, talk about what makes your robot unique. We kind of just try to think about those different things, think about the changes we've made, what lessons we learned, what things, challenges we had to overcome with our design. And then they just try to keep them talking. I mean, we went to a match, we had to excuse ourselves, some of the members, and came back and the judges were still there. So
what was sort of funny or interesting is we had to actually stop the judges because we had time set up on the practice field, and you've got to use it. And we say, we're sorry. One of our head mentors said, we're sorry, but we've got to move away. You can keep talking to the students that are there, but we've got to take the robot.
Exactly. And when it makes sense and you're able to, depending upon the game, we try to have the kids, tether the robot, op test it, demonstrate all those things as well. I mean, they might even, Eric, been open to even going to the practice field. I almost think one year we've actually even done that. I think if, she came with us one time, I almost feel like, but that it's worth asking if you run into that situation too, or you can ask to come back. A lot of times they ask us and we're getting ready to queue, and they're more than willing to say, yep, they'll just change up their little schedule and they'll stop back.
I have a quick question there. As a newer team, which one of these awards should you aim for if you had to be intentional? My problem with the last 2 years has been, just the concept of running everything else and making sure we stay alive. That in itself keeps me occupied, and now tackling something else is like, but I also want to challenge my students in participating at a different level instead of just building robots and making robots work, but because it's a whole package that I don't want them to miss out on that aspect of it.
Jeremiah, I think I would recommend that you read all the award descriptions, see which one of those award descriptions most describes your team or your robot for that year, and then coach your students on what to talk about when the judges come talk to your team. Nate, if you would please, I'd like you to share our story of the Creativity Award last year, because we definitely coached our students in terms of we were trying to get the Creativity Award, and it's kind of a funny story, but I think Nate can tell it the best.
Sure. So yeah, usually we try to have, leading up to competition, some of our meetings where we talk as a team, but mainly those kids that have been highly instrumental in getting the robot built that are going to be in the pit. What's unique, read through those descriptions. What do you think makes sense for a robot? What should we try to talk about if we had to steer that conversation in a direction? That we hadn't won the Creativity Award before of those, as it's 6 robot related awards. So it's kind of a goal. Our robot necessarily wasn't really all that creative necessarily, but we were trying to think about what things made it unique. The kids had, we used very small Mecanum wheels we needed to utilize. We adapted the design to make them more grippy with spear gun tubing on the rollers. They kind of ran with that. And I mean, I think they pretty much just tried to say the word creative as many times as they could, I think, in there talking with the judges and it worked, I guess. I don't know. I mean, that's, they would explain how their robot was creative. And it wasn't just that. I think they tried to just pick up all the different aspects. Our climber was a very similar climber to what many teams had. It shot the balls much like the same other robot. So last year, I think, was a year where there weren't as many unique robots in that regard in some aspects, but they really tried to that's what they wanted to focus on. They talked about all aspects, but I think they really just tried to think of what made their robot, what creative use of materials, and that was the Mecanum wheels. And I forget if there was anything else in there, but they really just kind of hit them with that word a bunch of times.
I'm curious, did anyone have or has used in the past any kind of specific props where they either brought, like you said, spare part or a wooden part? Do other teams utilize presentation materials that we haven't discussed here yet?
I know in the past, whenever we would make iterations on a piece, we would bring those versions in to show the progress we've done over the years. And so we can physically hand it over to the judge and they can see all the different ways it's changed over time. So that's one of the props we use.
This is less of a prop for robot attributes, but for team attributes. I know that in our Duluth regional, we were asked if we had documentation for all of the equity and inclusion stuff that we've been working on this year. So in the end, one of the other captains and we wrote up basically this entire binder of all the work we've been doing and how it's impacted our team and where we want to improve it in the future. And then we printed that out and put the binder into our pit. So we were able to, when we were talking about that, hand that to the judges at North Star. Although I think that if you kind of do something like that, it might be still important to speak to all of the things you write about, because I know that we kind of, instead of talking about them, which we did at Duluth, we kind of just handed over the binder and let the judges kind of like skim through it, which I don't think had as much of, it didn't have as much of an impact as I think both handing it to the judges and talking about it would.
So I have a question. Do any of the teams have a specific group that they use preparing for awards? Or is it more generalized over the team? Because we have a subgroup, and that is their task, is just awards. And they have a team meets from preseason all the way through the tournaments, is preparing for different awards. In fact, the main award, and we gave presentations, both Duluth and here. But that is, as I said, with a dedicated mentor and a group of students I was hoping they'd join us tonight. They didn't, but so more talk about it. But that is part of our team.
Did your team apply for Impact this year?
Yes.
So that was part of their job, was preparing the Impact application?
Yeah, so they spent a great deal of time on it. And we were hoping they'd get it, but they didn't. But they did a fantastic job. They've spent, I can't even tell you how many hours putting them together and preparing for both tournaments and practicing, and they had visuals, the whole thing on that. But sometimes teams have a better impact, but they did do everything they could and spent the time to put it together.
For the teams on the call that do the Impact Award, I'm curious about the video part. When do you start preparing your video, and when do you usually get it done?
Well, Scott, can I tell you something about like our Impact Award in general, our submission?
Yes, please share.
So
how did you win? Tell us how you won.
We decided to apply for Impact about a week before Duluth. I have been adamantly anti-Impact like since my 9th grade year because I had a really bad time when my team tried to apply in 2020. And I was really frustrated by how it went for us, and I didn't want to do it again. And part of my frustration was like it felt like we had spent, and that we weren't like an award specific sub-team. We were the operations sub-team. And so we were supposed to be doing like all of the non-technical stuff and like sponsors and fundraising and outreach and anything. And it felt to me like we spent all season preparing for the Impact Award instead of doing any of the work we actually wanted to do. We were just talking about it and not even like, I don't know. I was just like so frustrated by how it had gone. And I know that was really specific, but that's like some context for where I was at. And I was like, I had been so focused on like, I want us to do the stuff we care about for the reasons like that we care about, not because we're going to get an award for it, just because we want to do it. And I didn't want doing Impact to be like, oh, now we're suddenly going to do a bunch of stuff so we can get Impact. I was like, guys, like I really want us to figure out what we care about and do that. And so we weren't going to do Impact. I convinced Joseph, who is also here, that we should not do Impact. And then like a week before Duluth, we had this conversation with we were sponsored by a fraternity, and the Triangle Fraternity at the University of Minnesota, they're a STEM fraternity, and they came and visited us. And one of the guys in the fraternity spent a lot of time talking to us, and he was talking to us about Impact. And I was like, I could see us doing it in a couple of years. Like once we've really solidified like where we're at and like we're really like strongly doing what we care about because we care about it and not for an award, then we can talk about it and like submit for it and talk about what we're doing. And And then the fraternity left, and then our head coach, Michael, turned to me and he was like, Phoebe, we're already doing it. We should submit the award now about what we're doing now. And it doesn't have to be about anything else. It's just showing who we are right now, and we might not win it, but let's just show that we think what we're doing is valuable by submitting for the award. And what we're going to do is we're going to do it all in 24 hours. That was the initial proposal that I agreed to. And so we scheduled an extra practice, and we said, okay, anybody who wants to help with the impact submission, come, and we're going to work on the impact submission. And we spent the first 45 minutes agreeing on what it was that we actually wanted to say, what did we actually care about, and the message we came to agree on was our biggest and most important impact is in long-term relationships. It's in our own team, and it's in the teams we directly support within our schools and the teams directly in our communities. And we're focused on building strong connections, and we have to do our best at home first. That was kind of our message. And then we had 2 students who wanted to do a video. We were like, great, good luck, have fun. And we spent the rest of the night writing drafts for all of the essays. At the end of the night, they were not all done. And we were like, okay, we can take the rest of the week. I guess we can finish them the rest of this week. And so I had one student who was particularly invested in writing our long essay and spent the rest of the week each practice on it. And I helped him edit it. And the short answers, Joseph and I honestly just ended up putting a few hours into editing. And then they gave us the video and we submitted it. And then we didn't make a presentation. And then we got to Duluth and we still didn't have a presentation. And it was, and then we were like, okay, they don't do them on Thursday, so we don't have to figure it out yet. And then on Thursday night, we got back to our hotel room. And Joseph and Ava and I were like, okay, we have to make a presentation now. And I was like, okay, how are we going to do this in a way that embodies the things that we care about? And we're brainstorming, and I'm like, okay, well, what if we just did it where I told the story of our team in the last 3 years, and we could tell the story together, and maybe it would just go like this. And I just gave this presentation, and then I was like, okay, guys, what do you think? We could split that up, right? And Joseph and Ava both looked at me and they were like, Phoebe, you're just going to present that. That's what we're doing tomorrow. It's 1:30. Let's go to bed. And I was like, okay. And so then the next day we went and I presented that presentation, and it is the presentation is the story of our team from when I joined, which just to keep it shorter, really, I'm taking a long time, but it wasn't the most perfect, beautiful place. And there was a lot of inappropriate humor and I didn't feel super comfortable. And how we have really worked on changing our team culture to make it a safer, more inclusive place over the last 3 years. And so I told the story of the team, then we answered some questions, then we were done. And then we didn't win impact, and then we went home, and then we had lots of things to do. And then a week before Minneapolis, I was like, guys, I don't think we should present at Minneapolis. I feel I'm really stressed out, and we have so much to do, and Nightcrawler is gonna win it anyways. That's what I said. And I don't know if we should do it. And I was pushing really hard for us not to do it. And Michael was like, Phoebe, come on, please, you can do it. And it's try to have fun with it. It's going to be okay. I was like, okay, fine. I ended up just being kind of inertia that we did it again. And then, but I did end up taking Joseph and Clover, and I was like, okay, we do actually really have to improve on the question answering. We switched out to the Ava for Clover. This is just it doesn't matter that much. But anyways, I drilled them on question answering so that they could answer the questions that we got relatively quickly, but focus on the things that the way we wanted to answer questions. And then we went back there. They have 10 minutes where you're just waiting before you present. We spent the entire 10 minutes making puns and talking about joke impact presentations. And we went in there. mostly fork puns because I had a plastic fork with me. And then we went in and we did it. And then I was like, okay, we did it. And then we got to the award ceremony and they said the word unicorns and I fell out of my chair. So that's like the long story of how we got there. Very unconventional, I think, probably. Yeah, anyways.
Unconventional but authentic. I like honestly. I think that's a huge part of it. Is that you talked about your team and what matters to you and what matters to your team, and that's what matters. So, congratulations. It's obvious. I mean, the passion is obvious and it's infectious. So,
I agree. I feel like the story you just told is impact worthy. So
right.
Well done.
And the thought process that Nightcrawler is going to win it is not the right process.
Probably not.
No, it's an award. You should be proud of your team, regardless of who's in. It's the story of your team, and the judges actually want to hear the story of your team. So,
and I love your enthusiasm. That's really does make it.
All right. So I run into a lot of that on our team where, somebody else is just going to win it. And we just have them go, you know what? It's whatever happens, this is your best opportunity to do a little bragging or to reflect on your teams. And where do you want to make changes and improvements? Maybe if they need improvements, it's like you can't compare Nightcrawler to anybody else because they're Nightcrawler. I mean, it's not that they're the best team, but they're their own entity. You got to create your own entity, with your team. Every team's different and they're all awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. It was mostly a way when I was saying that, I just really didn't want to do it. And I was like, look, Michael, why are you making us do this again? I was very stressed out, but I'm glad we did it.
Yeah, I'm glad you did it too.
I think imposter syndrome, which if you're not familiar with the term, but feeling like there's always somebody better, I think that's a very real thing. And I think everyone on this call should take away from the call that don't give in to imposter syndrome. Nightcrawler did submit for Impact only at Minneapolis. It's the first year we've done it in a long, long time. We did not submit for Impact 2018, 2019 might have been the last time we submitted. Because we were thinking so much about, hey, we're really focused on what's going on inside our team. We try to build a good robot and compete well. We don't spend a lot of time outside of our team. And this year, I think we sat down and we reflected, you know what, there actually is quite a bit of things that we do outside of our team we should submit. But I'll share with you that for a lot of the same reason you just said is let's not do things for an award. Let's just do them because they are fun and we want to do them. But this is the first time we've submitted for what was Chairman's, but now is Impact in quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you go.
Yeah. But I think that, I guess from my perspective, our team did not submit for Impact, this year. And one of the reasons we didn't was because we felt that, at least from our team's limited post-COVID, because our team's basically entirely post-COVID right now, view of it was we kind of viewed it as you get this award for starting X number of FTC teams, and just, kind of all that. And our team felt like we thought what we were doing was unique, but that it didn't really conform to any of the awards definitions. And so we didn't want, and I guess it was kind of the same view that Phoebe and Joseph had of we want to focus more on building up our team's community and program rather than spending a lot of time on Impact. And I think for this year, I'm glad that we didn't submit because there's a lot of things that we are rebuilding our entire non-technical team. We had one person on it. going into the year. So like that was kind of our focus, but it was definitely, I think seeing No Mythic win it was a bit inspiring to our team. And I think that we're probably going to submit next year because it's like, at least from that perspective, it's like, no, this maybe isn't an award that's just for, making a bunch of FTC and FLL teams.
Yeah, Ian, I think that is a thing that we had thought years ago too. We would hear those stats, from winners, and I think that's something that I think first wide or FRC wide, they kind of were restructuring what that meant, what kind of expectations or what that impact or that time chairman's kind of qualifications meant. I think it's coming down to what impact are you making in your community? What are your community needs? You just have to do what's right. I think if your team, you find yourself meeting throughout the year, not just during the build season, and you're doing the outreach things, you should not shortchange yourself and thinking that what we do is, is not like the other teams. You never know. It's a good exercise. Submit. It takes more time, yes, but if you have the manpower, you should do it.
And it could also be in the point of like self-reflective of your team. Is this what we want to do, or do we want to be better? Even if you don't submit it, you should write it. See where you want to be, and in the whole world, because it sounds crazy. Dean Kamen says it all the time. It's not about the robot; it's about the students. So you should be proud, because you presented real well. So.
Yeah, and the process for me of going through and like gathering all the information that we would need in order to submit was really almost like a team history lesson and everything that we have been accomplishing, and just realizing like, kind of, it was a way to kind of get over that imposter syndrome of feeling like, oh, we're only a team that does good robot stuff. And it's like, no, we've been, running these conferences, or, we've really have actually been increasing the ways that we reach out to our other FRC teams in these past years. Even though, like right now we don't have a PR sub team, like we're still making the efforts as a team. And it was a really good reminder, and also kind of like a guiding point as we think about like, oh, maybe outreach events that we want to continue in the future, or how can we change them to be better? And I think the submission process is, it's like, it's not the destination, it's the journey, to be cliche. But I think that really matters, and like understanding that and using it as an opportunity for reflection. Absolutely.
I think that while I agree with everything you said, and I even said it too, is that you don't do things for impact. I think one of the things that's nice about impact is it can kind of push you over the edge. Just like the way you behave and interact with people at competitions, and you've got that little GP thing in the back of your head of, oh, I got to do a little bit more. I have to do a little bit more because I want to make sure I'm projecting GP. There are things that you do in your team, both inside and outside, where you're like, oh, if we do a little bit more, this actually would make a good part of impact award submission. Mm-hmm. So it kind of can help push you over the edge in your interaction or what you do. Just like that piece of being GP can push you a little bit further to do a little bit more, to be gracious professional.
Yeah. For the talent team, we never think of impact. We do extreme amounts of outreach to the community the entire year, do a lot in the summer supporting things, but none of it is ever thinking about impact when we do it. It's just we get into the season, and we have a group that does awards, and we're going to, we'll summarize that and however we do it, but our nature has nothing to do with thinking about impact on our choices of, we supported, an entire set of FTC teams here, and that was just, the kids wanted to do it, and some mentors wanted to do it. We've reached out to, Tots for Bots, which where we raise money with the police department during Christmas and bring out the robots and bring in teams. There's just many missing things. We do food drives, but none of this that we do we even think about an award for it. It's just the nature of the team. We just try and do as much in the community and for other students, and creating summer camps is just something we do every year. And as I said, it's only comes time of year, it's like, oh, we have an awards team. Why don't we try and summarize and see if we can get the award? But it never works the other way. We never think about that when we during the year when we're doing these things.
One piece of advice I'd have for a team if you're thinking about doing the Impact Award is documentation. If you do it, well, you don't have to do the event for the Impact Award. It is nice at the end of whatever event or thing you do, just write it down somewhere. You can have even a running list, just a Google Doc. It doesn't have to be anything special, but just keep a list of what you're doing so that if you end up doing some kind of submission, at least you have something handy that makes it easier. It's easier to do that and take pictures at events than it is to go back and try and think of what all they are.
Well, the one change we did do this year was doing that. I mean, maybe I say not think of impact, say keep track of how many people you have affected. I mean, like we go out to the community center when we do this Tots for Bots or the toys, and we interact with hundreds of kids there. We do things during July 4th. Community, there's a big carnival, and we probably interact with well over a couple of hundred kids getting to play with our robot. And so we finally said, well, at least count. So we did do that this year, kept track, try and keep a count of how many people we actually affect. And that's the only change we've done this year, was actually try and keep a count rather than just say we did this event.
I would agree with your point about documentation. I think that was something that we ran into when we were first applying, is that like, oh, we talk about all of these things, but we don't have a lot of statistics. What I will say is that like, when we started realizing that, when people brought up a lot of suggestions about like how could we better document our impact, and I think something that I struggle with is that outreach isn't always quantifiable, and specifically the things that what we focused on in our impact presentation was the long-lasting and thorough impact that we have on our smaller communities. Community building, the connections that people, the deep connections that people have both to each other and to the work of the team isn't a thing that you can track, and that's what we focused on. And we had people that some of our mentors were like, we should bring like a clicker to events. And count how many people show up to our events. And for me, I struggle with that because like, yes, like on one hand, I am curious to know like how many people are coming to our events and how many people are we reaching out to, but also like, it's that thing of what's our goal here? Is it affecting as many people as possible, or is it giving them this thorough, experience that better improves their connection to STEM or to the work of our team, or to exposes them to work that they could be doing after high school, or when they grow up. It would be fun to see how many people come to our Allergy Safe Halloween event, but to be honest, I don't know how much like having kids drive robots gives them like a deep and thorough connection to STEM. And so, I think that there's a happy medium in between the two, but I do want to say that like there is, there's pluses and minuses to both. And, it's good to get in a mindset of, thoroughness.
I would agree with you, Joseph. Or like,
go ahead, Gabby, please.
Okay. All right. Phoebe. Yeah, I would definitely agree with you, Joseph. I think something that our team's kind of been focusing on this year is definitely, I think what you're kind of talking about is quantity over quality. And I think our team has definitely been working on the quantity factor this year because a lot of our FLL and FTC teams disbanded over COVID. And so we were just trying to reach out to as many people as possible. And then this summer, we're working on getting a lot more FLL and FTC teams and like more clubs within our elementary schools and middle schools. And so I think that's one thing that our team is personally working on. And yeah, I think finding that balance between the two, because there's definitely pros and cons to both.
Yeah, I agree with what Gabby and Joseph said. Like in our the interviews, I think like some of the statistics is, so we're an Open Alliance team this year, and like I think our Open Alliance post has reached like 2,500 to 3,000 people have viewed it. But then like at the same time, we have the statistic of, you know, our summer camp where we had 10 kids, we brought them in for a weekend. By the end of it, 8 of them said that they were planning on joining the FRC team. Like we interviewed them at the start and the exit. At the beginning, it was like 3 or 4 were planning on it. And then, you know, by the end, 8 of the 10 kids were like, I want to join, you know, an FRC team now. And, you know, for me, I think that has, you know, even with fewer students, an overall larger impact. Because like, I think that, you know, at least from my experience, being on an FRC team has, you know, massively changed the arc of my life versus, you know, reading an Open Alliance thread, which, you know, might have helped us come up with a cool idea for a robot intake or whatever.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And like, just over the process of writing the essay, whether it was like getting, we had some quotes for parents and stuff related to our DEI fee initiatives. And it was, you know, reading those quotes, and then I asked teams, you know, to like give a testimonial about Nightcrawler. And I think I read one, I think it was from Pizza. I read one and I almost cried because I was like, it was just like, oh, we really have done so much. And it was just like, you know, saying so many people came to week 0 versus like reading this team be like, hey, you know, this is where we were at the start of our season. And because of our interactions with you, like, this is where we've ended up. And it was just like, I've never felt so like, grateful for the impact that I was able to have. And I feel like you almost can't equate those two statistics, even though, you know, they're both talking about the same thing.
I got a question here. I personally actually really like my favorite award in this whole program is the impact. And I don't think I want to even tackle the award, but the impact part about I want to use as a recruitment for our program. And I'm asking anyone in the room, in the group, if you haven't established like a documentation of like different things you do and your approach towards them, because I have a small team and so being super organized would be super helpful to me. And I already wear multiple hats, and I can guarantee you I'm not the most organized person when it comes to all of those different things. I try the best I can do to do justice by them, but I really want my students to be involved with having things with our elementary schools. We have one elementary school, and we did one program. We did a STEM day, STEM morning, at the end of the fall semester, and the kids really, really liked it, and they're still talking about it. And you know, I kind of want to do that, something like that twice a year, one in each semester, and something to do in the summer. You know, because it's a time of the year where kids either they're super busy with who knows everything else that their parents want to keep them busy with, but having something purpose for something intentional to, you know, to grab their attention towards STEM. I like this, you know, the mantra from first, like it's not about the robot, it's about using the robot, you know, to draw people towards STEM. And that's something that I really want to embody with the Aerobots team. And it's just, but I'm looking out there and fishing out for any super organized person who got something, you know, call me crazy, but if the wheel's already been invented, I don't want to reinvent it.
Does your school have any summer camps that it runs?
So last year, my principal approached me to run a science camp, and it was my first year there. And it was the first of a lot of things, and I didn't. And to my understanding, they don't really have a summer camp per se. But I'm pretty sure if I was to probably, my wife, should I hear this? If I was to probably whisper something. If I had a roadmap or something, I was a presenter to my friend. They're very open to a lot of my craziness, and so I'm sure that's one they will say. But then there comes the aspect of money where the HR lady came in yesterday with after your 2 competitions, you were in a whole body call. And so, but if it is something, and I know the district also is very, very good about if it is something that impact the student body of the school, the district tend to pick up the tab for that and not the team's, account. So if something out there that I can use like a summer camp, that'd be great,
Yeah, why I ask that is that our grade schools have full summer camp, weeks of summer camp that they run, and we tag on to adding a class. Our team then creates a STEM class in coordination to our grade schools that are running classes. There's music classes, there's art classes, there's all these classes for young kids. And then we pick up a time slot and say, we're going to run this class in coordination with this week. And that's how we do it. We don't just, there were times years back we used to bring kids into our high school and we ran our own class. But instead now we coordinate with the school system. This is Eden Prairie School System that runs this. Because we're going to, we now have this, I think it runs Monday through Thursday, full day, or 4 hours. And then it's up to our kids to then create full curriculums and run a class. But as I said, we don't have to create the technicals of how to get it together. We have to run our class, but it's all in coordination to summer school that's already running.
So do you have a curriculum that you guys, because some of the things is materials and,
this is the kids decide. Each year what we do is have the kids build a full Arduino robot for the last few years. This is our programmer actually pre-builds these. We sort of do all the soldering previous, but each of these kids gets to actually sit there for an hour each day and work on building their own little robot that they then program, and then they come out with a real robot. That's only one thing. They're building marshmallow bridges. They're each different technical things. It's the kids themselves decide, what do I want to teach this year? Do I want to do marble runs? Do I want to do marshmallow bridges? And you have to realize these young kids have very small attention spans.
Yeah.
So they have to pack each day with all these things. And then we meet before for weeks, building up the packages and pre-doing, and I usually mentor, but I'm in the background. We have a couple of mentors that are there, but it's the kids that are deciding what's going to be run, put the package together, tell us what they need to buy, and then pre-set up their presentations, and then they run it. But I said it's in coordination with a summer school that already exists doing other classes. So I don't know if that helps you.
Hey, Phoebe.
Thank you.
Jeremiah, I think one of the things you should take away from this is that the idea of submitting impact was very stereotypical years ago, and that's starting to change to be a huge diversity of things that make an impact. From what I know about you and where you guys are, you're in a small town in a rural part of the state, not a lot of high-tech jobs in the area. I feel like you have the ability to introduce some of that STEM stuff, maybe some high tech stuff into your community that is sort of second nature to a lot of the teams around where we are, because there's a lot of high tech jobs around where we are. I mean, we've got probably 4 Medtronic buildings within 5 miles of our school. So I think if you look at what is our community, what is our community lacking in the aspect of STEM? You guys do a lot of manufacturing up there, from what I understand. So, how can we take maybe high tech and combine that with manufacturing and get a little bit of what the kids know, and add this other thing to it? Even if you're out visiting the manufacturing businesses in town and trying to grow awareness that way, there's a lot there that you could roll into an impact award that's not starting FLL and FTC teams, which is, I think, what the stereotype was for a long time. So, I mean, look around your community and see what you can do to just build awareness. That's still a lot. That's still something great.
And that's kind of the move I've been, is bridging that connection between like, hey, we are agriculture and manufacturing community, but this is no different than what, STEM is, because your tractors that sit out there in the field is a giant spaceship that just drives around on the ground, because it's all, robots control, and your manufacturing plants. Now we have a poultry processing plant in town that just they're still working on putting 5 robots online, how to process. I'm like, that's job that you want these kids to be able to effectively do, the ones that I want to leave. And so I kind of been pushing. Sorry for the background noise. I've been pushing for that, a lot. And so yeah, I agree with you, Scott. And thank you. Was that Eric?
Eric, I think
your microphone is off, Eric.
You're muted.
It's those tech things.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was looking for some curriculums I could share from a summer camp that they put together. Side.
And thanks, Phoebe, for that YouTube video. I'll watch it after the. Yeah.
We do a STEM fair every year. We've been doing STEM fairs at our middle school for a long time. We didn't do one this year, but there's still opportunity to do it for a parent-teacher night or something. But we also, every year for the last 7 or 8 years, we've been going to a technology conference in Wisconsin Dells that a friend of mine runs. It's one of the largest tech conferences in the Midwest. And we host a STEM room. And the most popular activity we have is Stomp Rockets. And so we have, those big red water bottles that you can buy at Walgreens, put hot water in it if you're not feeling well and you need hot compress someplace. We shoved 1/2-inch PVC into the end of that thing and just kind of wedged it in there. And then the kids can jump on the hot water bottle. It's really durable rubber, so it doesn't explode. We used to use 2-liter bottles, but after so long, those just break. And then you have to make your kids drink a lot of soda to get enough 2-liter bottles. And so that's not always the best thing. But anyway, you just take a piece of 1/2-inch PVC in there, you put an elbow on it, and kids make paper rockets with masking tape and just printer paper. And then they jump on the hot water bottle and they see how far it can fly. And if they hit the other side of the room, you tape the rocket, they put their name on it and tape the rocket to the wall. At the conference 2 years ago, we had, I think, a 11-year-old girl who was in that room for 3 hours, and she was not going to leave until she had made a rocket that would hit that far side of the wall. And it's a simple activity. It's really cheap to get the materials, but it's a great activity that kids enjoy doing. And of course, you can explain pressure and how the air pressure makes a rocket fly and aerodynamics and all of that business. But it's just a fun activity. And to Eric's point, kids have a short attention span. Anything that can keep someone entertained for 20 minutes or more is a really great activity for kids.
So do judges, by the way, have a short attention span.
Stomp rockets in our pit.
Yeah, Phoebe's the perfect example. I mean, goes into a award, a major one, completely not unprepared, but not as well and documented as some, and was be able to, relay the information about her team to the judges and stuff like that in a manner that probably made the judges smile. I know that the judges enjoy a good story. So if you read like furniture assembly instructions, it's terrible. But if you read like you really care about your team and you're proud of what your team does, that's the biggest hint I could probably tell anybody. So all the awards right down to, well, besides some of the machine attribute awards, it's about the kids. So when the judges are sitting there interviewing your kids, they're not staring at your robot. They're listening to your kids. So that's the best advice I got. Just be you, the best you, and things will just roll for you.
Last weekend in lacrosse, we had prepared our students beforehand. We had a group of students that were our talking to judges students. They were also on our drive team and other students. Judges had stopped at our pit a couple times. Our students were out at matches. They'd kept coming back. So our coach finally just ran up into the stands, grabbed 4 students, brought them down to the pit, and was like, talk to the judges. And so they were going through the awards, where we weren't getting read. Finally, it comes to engineering inspiration. And when they read out our team's winning nomination, they said all of the things that our students that our coach had just grabbed out of the stands as what they said as to what why they picked our team. So it was the 4 students that we had not prepared, just grabbed them out of the stands, brought them down, and they were passionate and talking about the robot. And that's what stood out to the judges.
Right. So the biggest hint you could possibly have is they're not looking at the robot. They're looking at the students. Everything starts in the pits. It starts with the students. So,
and then after the competition was pretty much done, or the judges had already decided on other awards. We had a judge stop by our pit just to talk to our students. And he's like, don't worry, we've already decided on all the awards. What you say cannot be held against you. And he was like, he just sat and talked to our students. And he's like, I do this because I want you to know next time we're not scary. We want to talk to you students. We want to hear your stories. And, we were once coaches or we were once students. And, we want to hear about you and your robots. So don't be scared about us next time we come to your pit. Just have fun. Tell us your story. Tell us about your robot. We want to see that passion and that excitement. So that's what I will always tell my students from now on.
They're not staring at the robot. They're staring at your kids.
Yeah, on the judges not being scary, this year was the first year I had really interacted for any awards, and we were going to do the impact submission, which there had been a lot of moments right before that presentation where we really needed to be unflappable, and I was very stressed going into there. And so and it's myself, and I'm very comfortable public speaking. That's not something that I really struggle with at all. It's been something I've improved on a lot while being on the team. But with me was a freshman who was very, very nervous, and a sophomore who was also very, very nervous, both their first year on the team. And they go in and, we've practiced a lot, and but we're still a little scared. And there's a whole thing with our video not being on a USB stick. And so that's in the back of our minds. And we go in and we get ready and we start to present. And then the judges are just like, oh, no, don't start yet. We got to introduce ourselves. Like, we want you to meet us first and get to know us. And it was just this moment we were just all took a breath and we're like, oh, okay. It's not this, it doesn't have to be this crazy high stress situation. They just genuinely want to be here and listen and laugh at our really corny charged up puns. And it was great. And I think, if we do that again, I would definitely want to communicate that better.
Yeah, I think that the judges, especially they're all just really kind of so for my Dean's List interview, a couple of people here have heard this story. So they were running short on judges that day. So they brought in Mark Lawrence to be one of the Dean's List judges. So I walk into the Dean's List room. The door opens and I just see Mark Lawrence sitting at the table across from me. And in my mind, I'm like, holy crap, that's Mark Lawrence who's about to be interviewing me. And like my heart just like dropped to the bottom of my chest. I was like, oh no. But then like it just turned out to be like, super great. He was like really nice about it. And it was like just, really cool. And it was a fun interview.
Yeah, if you ever get a chance to have a conversation with Mark, he's a pretty cool dude.
It could have been worse. It could have been Yoji.
Hi, Yoji. He's on, by the way.
I got a question about team culture, and I think Jeremy said something about that. And we're young, we're new. It's challenging because I have age groups from 7th grade, 8th grade, and then I have 9th. This year I didn't have a 9th grader, but then I had 11th and 12th, and the 10th and 12th grader, and their opinions are just all over the place. And sometimes I find myself playing a referee and making sure somebody is not being too childish and somebody's not being too serious.
Well,
and so now, because I really genuinely want these kids to be able to gather and enjoy the company of each other and what they're doing. Because when they have that passion, then I feel like the creative nature will come forth. And being able to say, hey, you signed up for this, you like being here, and these are the objectives we have. I feel like there'll be less of a chore, than it would be more of a, hey, like I know a few kids I have on there, and all I gotta do is just ask, and like, oh, I got this, Miller, and then it just run at it, and then there's a few where I just like, dude, can you just pump the brakes? But how do you build, and I know it may sound like a silly question, but how do you build that culture with your teams, and how, those of you that have such a good organic and intentional, and kind of would like to know some opinions in that direction.
Before we start on that, it's been an hour and 25 minutes. We usually go an hour and a half. I feel like what you just asked, Jeremiah, is an entire weekly topic. Can I propose that we make this I'm seeing some thumbs up here. Can I propose that we make this a future all week topic? Because I'd love to hear what other teams are doing for team building.
Sounds
I feel like that would be a fantastic topic to do for team building.
I crossed paths, if you didn't know, Jeremiah and Grand Forks, and I got an opportunity to just kind of hang back a little bit and watch you working with your kids. Don't change a thing. That's all I got to say.
Well, if I could add one thing for getting confidence for the kids to present, have them go out to sponsors that you're trying to get. The freshmen, and just talk about, and that's sort of a low pressure. It's not the kind of thing being in front of a judge, but then they start talking about the team and themselves, and it just gives them some experience before they have to get in front of a judge.
Yeah.
All right,
they're not scary.
I'm going to try to wrap things up here. One other judge is kind of more of a logistics thing than anything else. When we were in Duluth at Northern Lights, we only had one pair of judges come to our pit, and we're a little confused by that and disappointed too, because we didn't get to talk about a lot of things that we had hoped to talk about. So I specifically asked about that at 10K, and the message at 10K was, you should have seen 2 judges there. You definitely should see 2 judges here. If you don't see 2 judges by the end of day 1, come find us. So that was a really important piece of information that I don't feel like a lot of teams get. And I think you can go to pit admin and say, how many pairs of judges should we expect to see today? And if we don't see that, when should we alert someone? I wish we had thought about that a little bit sooner up in Duluth, but keep that in the back of your mind, because I'm sure it was an honest mistake. There was a snowstorm. I know they were crazy short on judges because of the snowstorm up in Duluth, and things happen. But it doesn't hurt to kind of have an understanding of what should we expect, and then who should we talk to if we're not getting the judges that we think we should get. We were also right across from Talon, so we had 2052, 2502. Someone may have read the list wrong, and maybe one of our judges went over and talked to Talon. Who knows what happens, right? But I think that was great information that I had never heard before of how many judges should you expect to see.
2 cents.
And I'm going to start asking about that at our future competitions, just to make sure that we're seeing the people we expect to see. All right. So final thing before we go tonight, our call next week has already been determined. Thanks to Jeremiah. He asked this question what would have been last week, 2 weeks ago now. And our conversation is going to be around the design process. So how do we pick a design that we feel like our teams can actually complete? How do we stay on task? How do we show up to an event with a completed robot that we feel confident can do the things that we want to do? And along with that, I think we decided we were going to do a little bit of game analysis. How do we evaluate the game to make good design choices? And then I anticipate there'll be lots of conversations too about how do you know when you need to pivot, and then how do you pivot appropriately? So I expect that'll be a very long conversation next week. But if you are willing to come share your process and how your team approaches the build season, I know that several people on this call would greatly appreciate it.
We're weird. Whatever the team decides, whatever the kids decide, that's it. All right. Everybody have a great evening.
All right. Hopefully I'll see everyone and more next week. Tell your friends. I will try to get the link out a little bit earlier in the week like I did this past week so that you have time to forward it to everyone. But
so if we have teams that have qualified for champs and we have more questions, should we just send an email, Scott, or if we're trying to need assistance with things?
Oh yeah. You guys, if anybody, I'm going to put it in the chat here. If anyone, we've had several teams contact us about advice for champs. We're happy to share any information that we know. You can email info@team2052.com. That comes to most of the mentors. If you have specific questions or just general stuff, Nightcrawler is more than happy to share advice. And if anyone else here wants to throw an email address in the chat, please do. Feel free to pass that along.
At what time by what day do you have to accept the invitation?
What do you mean?
If you qualified for you to complete your registration by?
Ours is this Tuesday by 4 p.m.
Okay. So, yep. It's a
credit card.
Yeah.
It'll be great, Phil. Just don't stress too much till you talk to your people tomorrow.
We're not worried about the registration part. That's supposed to be NASA covering that, was my understanding. We just want to figure out where that money is going to get deposited into our account so we can register.
That will show up in your first dashboard sometime Monday afternoon.
Oh, fantastic. Then I can sleep easy tonight.
It'll show up. There'll be a credit. It'll show up in your thing there, a $5,000 credit. Then you just go in, like you're going to pay for your next event, and then the credit will be there, and it'll all work out.
Awesome. But David, you still do have to go in there and
you still have to go in like you're going to register for the event and pay for it, and it just comes up as a zero balance.
All right, awesome.
I just did it on Monday.
I tell you what, this has been, I think, maybe the best conversation we've had so far. This was really great. Thank you for everyone who contributed. Fantastic conversation.
All right.
Have a good night, everyone.
Peace.
See you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
See you later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
That's it for this week's FRC Roundtable. Join us live all season long, every Sunday night. Visit the website at team2052.com/roundtable to sign up for weekly invites. In the meantime, keep building, keep learning, and we'll see you next week.